Charis Kai Irene. Grace and peace to you. My name is Abiut Sagaya and I'm teaching Biblical Greek. I have students in one of the seminaries in Ethiopia. So I help them go through the lessons. So what I do a video lesson every time or every week so that I help the students to go through the material. So this lesson is brought to you not as a full load course, but as a highlight. So these video lessons are not the full load of the study, but they are very helpful. Although they are very short, but they are very helpful. So anyone who wants to start his beginning Greek class, I hope he will find it helpful. So this is what I do every week. So I appreciate if you can go through the lesson and give me your feedback, your comments, and also don't hesitate to subscribe to this channel. Let's grow this channel so that people learn the Greek of the Bible, so that they will have the feel of the original language. So the Lord willing, we may keep adding lessons as we go forward, and I hope you will enjoy it. May the Lord bless you. Thank you once again. Charis Kai Irene. Grace and peace to you. So we will continue our lesson 4, the Aorist Indicative Active Forms. So in the previous video lecture, the one that I just uploaded before this, you have gone through the memorization of the vocabulary for this lesson. I hope so. So now let's go direct to our lesson 4, the Aorist Indicative Active Forms. Let's begin with an introduction. The aorist tense verbs are classified into first aorist, also referred to as regular. Regular means they are conjugated with in a regular manner, like luo. Luo is a regular verb. Or weak aorist, and with the other type of aorist is the second aorist. So we have two kinds of aorist, first aorist and second aorist. One is regular, one is irregular. One is weak, one is strong. While their meaning is the same, okay, both the first and second aorist, except in very few cases where a verb has both first and second aorist forms, with one of them being transitive. Transitive means one has an object. For example, I made to stand. Stand is the object of the verb made. This standing requires a direct object to complete the sense, and the other intransitive, for example, I stood amazed. I stood amazed. This standing did not need direct object. First aorist includes the verbs that follow a given pattern, while the second aorist consists of a regular form. So this is actually the key here. Second aorist, they have irregular forms, and first aorist has a regular pattern. What we are discussing here is the first aorist group. So for now, we will focus on the first aorist group. The second aorist group will be discussed later. So now, the first aorist, in its regular form, it occupies all 4 rooms. Now, please remember the 4-room theory that was developed by Professor Samuel Ngewa, the author of this material. We remember there are 4 rooms where each part of a verb will occupy. And now you see that helps you visualize the parts of the verb. So the usual occupants are in rooms 2 and 4. That is the stem and the ending. These are very key in parsing. Okay, when you parse, a verb will have a stem and an ending, then sign of tense, then the prefix kind of augment, and then later on you will see what room 1 means. But for now, keep in mind it has a prefix. Room number 3, that is where you will have the sign of tense, like the future forms. The first aorist has sigma as a sign of tense, and the room number 1 is occupied by an augment. So the prefix in room number 1 is called augment, an epsilon, characteristics of past tense in their indicative mode. So in the indicative mood, when you see an augment in an aorist, the augment tells you it is a past tense. You remember in the present tense, present indicative active form, we've seen that there was no sign of tense, there was no augment or prefix that will tell you it is something, but you only have a stem and an ending. So please be familiar with the endings for the future tense and the present tense, because they all share the same endings. But when we studied the future tense, you remember that for it to be a future, there is a sign of tense, a sigma, that characterizes this tense is a future tense. Now, for the aorist tense, you have 4 room occupied. Okay, the epsilon that tells you it is a past tense, and then you have the stem, then you will have the sign of tense, that is sigma, and then you have a different kind of ending for the first aorist, which you will learn in the next slide. Now the forms of aorist verbs, we'll use an example of luo. Luo is our example. So look at this one. Elusa, elusa, elusamen, elusas, elusate, elusen, elusan. Okay, so you see this is an augment. This will occupy room number 1, and then lu throughout is a stem, and then sigma throughout is a sign of tense, and then you have the endings. So the aorist endings are now different. So what you need to do is write out all the endings so far that you have learned. Okay, the present tense ending and the future tense endings. Actually, present tense and the future tense share the same endings. So for the aorist, these are the endings. You can write them down and memorize them, because they will remain like this, except for the second aorist, which you will learn later. So look at this one. Elusa, I loosed. Elusamen, we loosed, which is the idea of simple past. Elusas, you loosed. Elusate, you loosed, plural. And elusen, he, she, it loosed. Elusan, they loosed. So a, as, en, amen, ate, an are the endings for the aorist verbs. This is how it will look like when you put it in the 4-room theory. So the 4-room theory, this is the singular section, and then this is the plural section, and then these are the persons, first, second, and third. So look at room number 1 occupied by the augment. So this is called an augment, the prefix, epsilon throughout, and then you have room number 2, which is lu, the stem, and then room number 3 occupied with the sign of tense, that is sigma, and then room number 4 occupied with the endings, as you see, a, as, en, amen, ate, en, for the plural number. So this is how it looks like when you display it in the 4-room theory. Now some notes on the first aorist tense. 1. It ends unlike those shared by present and future tenses. Okay, its endings, the endings like you have seen that occupy room number 4 in the singular and plural form are not the same as the present and future tense, where the present and future tense share the same ending. The endings are a, amen, as, ate, and an. So you need to write them down in the order they occur, the singular and the plural. Go back to the room theory, the 4-room theory, and pick this one as a singular and pick this one as a plural. So wherever you go, you may read. You can prepare a flashcard and write them down. Maybe at the front, you may write the Greek, and then at the back, you may write the English equivalent so that you memorize. And the second point is it is sign of tense sigma combines with the mutes with the same result as we find in the future. You remember when gamma, kappa, or c attached to sigma, they produce this, and then follow this one, okay? You are familiar with this one, okay? C, and then beta, p, phi, sigma produces ps, delta, tau, theta, plus sigma will produce sigma. And point 3, so this is all about, contraction, okay? Contraction happens due to the stem ending. So if the stem ends with this in one of this group of consonants, the sigma is affected, and the result will be these 3 different kinds of consonants. So point 3, its sign of tense, sigma, calls for lengthening of the final vowel of the stem in verbs whose stems end with a vowel, just as in the case in the future. You remember epsilon, alpha, or omega before sigma, they need to be lengthened, okay? Alpha and epsilon are lengthened to eta, and omicron is lengthened to omega. So you're familiar with this one, I am sure. If you forget, you can go back to lesson 3, where we've talked about it in detail. So notes continue. Point 4, in cases where the verb begins with a vowel, it is the same vowel that is lengthened, and instead of placing epsilon here as an augment. So for example, the lengthening pattern is alpha is lengthened to eta, and epsilon lengthens to eta, and omicron lengthens to omega. That's what I just said in the previous slide. When it is a diphthong, like I, alpha and iota, it lengthens to eta with an iota subscript, okay? Eta with an iota subscript. And epsilon and iota now lengthens to eta with an iota subscript, and OE or omicron with iota to omega with iota subscript. That the iota becomes subscript. Diphthong, epsilon and upsilon lengthens to eta and upsilon, or remains as u, or like epsilon and upsilon. Point 5, in compound verbs, which are formed by combining a preposition with a simpler form of the verb, for example, peripateo, it's a compound verb here, peri, you remember, peri, and then pateo. The augment is placed between the preposition peri and the simple form of the verb pateo. In this case, for example, the first aorist would be peri ipatesa. So peripatesa. This positioning of the augment is in compound verbs also applies to the other tenses that have an augment as their future. So I think this is something you need to just lay aside and focus on the major or the primary elements of the aorist tense, and but note this, okay, note this of different changes. Okay, now we have reached to the exercise point. Now exercise 4, an example. So like I do in all of I did like I did in all of our previous lessons, I give you an example and then followed by the assignment for you to do. So pay attention to this example. So our exercise is to parse. That means to give tense, mood, voice, person, and number of the verb. So our verb is hekosate, hekosate from echo, from echo, I hear. Hekosate from echo, I hear. For more information, check the rules of lengthening in the previous slide. Okay, I talked about lengthening in the previous slide, even in the previous lesson, lesson 3. So what is the answer? So this is the best place to begin with is, since we have the vocabulary form, that is a ko in the present indicative active form, that's the form, we call it a vocabulary form. So what you need to do is now just look at the ending, okay? Something comes to mind? Ate, this is a different ending from what we have seen for the present and the future. And then you remember sigma. Now this might make you think it is a future tense. Then you need to think more. You'll see an augment, a prefix here. So you have eta. So you need to ask yourself, where is this eta coming from? So an eta is an augment or a prefix. It was epsilon, but since our verb begins with a vowel, an alpha, alpha will always be lengthened to eta. So we have the lengthened alpha augment, and then we have a ko as our stem, and sigma as our sign of tense, and ate as our ending. So hekosate. Okay, the answer is, it is aorist, first aorist. Actually, I should have indicated this. First aorist, indicative, active, second person plural. Translation is you heard or you were hearing. So you heard. The best is you heard. You heard. Now exercise 4a, it will have 4 marks. You will do the same thing I did in the previous lesson. Follow the example I gave you in the previous lesson. In the previous slide. So your verbs are egrapsa from grapheo, I write, and hegapesen from agapao, I love. Exercise 4b, an example. So here we are asked to give the first aorist indicative active form of the following verbs, all of them given above under vocabulary and exercise for future tense. So we dealt with these ones in the future tense lesson, but then now here they come again. So this is an example. So in the previous slide, what you did was to parse, but here now you are going to produce or give the sixth form of the first aorist indicative active form for the verbs given for you in the next slide. So this is an example for you. Our verb is dioko, I pursue. So the first person, second person, third person here, you have, I do this so that you grasp the point. And don't forget the rules. You remember the rules? Let me take you back to the rules. There you go. Sorry, the rules should be here. Okay, this rule. So if the verb stem, if the verb is stem end with in one of all this and sigma attached to them, change happens. Okay, and then don't forget that with some vowels, before you add the sigma, lengthen happens. Don't forget that. Okay, so here we go. Idoko. So idokeo is our verb, and our stem is idoke. Our stem is duok. Duok is our stem, but then we have attached, or we have provided the augment epsilon throughout. That's our augment. No lengthening happens here. Why? The reason is because there is no vowel here. This is just a consonant. So duok, epsilon plus duok plus sigma plus the ending alpha. Now kappa and sigma, when they combine, there will be a change. The change is this one. So idoksa. So xi happens. Okay, idoksa. I persuade. Okay, I pursued. Idok plus sigma plus us. Idoksa. You pursued. Idoksen. He, it pursued. And then idoksamen, idoksate, idoksan. So the best way to do this is to just look at the example I have provided for you here and attempt the next exercise in the next slide. Here, an exercise 4B, which will have 4 marks. So you will do the same thing I have done in the previous slide, and please remember to apply the rule for the changes. Here you have phi and theta. Okay, theta, phi and thu. So you need to apply the rule. Okay, grapheo, pteo is your are your verbs. Well done. This is the end of lesson 4. We are at the end. So next we will have our lesson 4, which we will come back to it next week. Until then, have a lovely week and see you in the next lesson. For now, bye-bye.